Good morning and welcome to the Village of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Friday, March 11th. And just the first, maybe a little housekeeping. We're receiving items way past the due dates. I think it's Pam, what's our procedure?
Like Wednesday of last week is when we needed the material.
We really need the material, not logged in, the sign. We know we're all busy and we know you're all busy, but we need the material prior to 2 or 3 days before the meetings. We also have other lives that we lead here too. So I don't think it's fair to the board that we get this 2 or 3 days before. Just, and I'll chime in, any board members. I mean, I think I've had
just a question. Are you referring to formal submissions or testimony?
Both. I mean, the submission.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's in the best interest of the applicants to get the information so that we have time to visit and review. Otherwise, it's last minute. We're getting things last night for these hearings today. I don't think it's appropriate or in the applicant's best interest.
Okay.
Well, I mean, look, just to be fair, the applicant can always present anything they want at the hearing. So at least this is a little in advance. But your warning is, the applicant's attorney should take heed of the warning, because if they want their decision not to be delayed, the further in advance they can provide it to you, the further in advance you can meaningfully examine it and think about it and deliberate about it.
Also to follow up on that point, the public, which will be commenting on submissions, needs to have the opportunity to see the material that's being submitted. So it's not all going to be done in one session. So we will have no option to hold the hearings open if we don't get the material in a timely manner,
thereby delaying any decision by another 30 days. So,
And then, my last thing is it will keep Pam, let's keep Pam happy too. So,
which is our mantra.
I think that's
right?
the most important.
That's right.
Here, so.
I do need to get the bigger plans scanned, and scanning takes time. So
there you go.
Okay. So let's move on to the agenda here. So we have the minutes of February 11th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
So we have, I lose it already? All right. Sorry, guys. And type my determinations. Okay. Pam, I can't find.
You want me to read it for you?
Please, I just had it here a minute ago. Go ahead. I'll look for them while you read the.
Okay. In the application of Behind the Pond LLC, 50 Highway Behind the Pond, Suffolk County Tax Map number 9416.1, to make alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming second residential use is approved.
The question, I see it appears twice on our agenda. Is that just a reprint?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're just doing.
I have a motion.
So moved. Happy to see that the changes, adjustments were made. Happy to.
Okay. Can I get a second, please?
I second.
Pam, can you please poll the board?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Okay, Pam, I found my, in the application of Michael Kretschmar and Chuck Thomas, 35 McGurk Street, Suffolk County Tax Map number 1-1-29, to make alterations to an accessory building and convert to a pool house, install swimming pool equipment, and construct additions to existing residents is approved. May I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay, can I have a second?
Aye.
Okay. Pam, can you poll the board, please?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
No.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Okay, on to the third determination here. In the application of Michael and Christine Aaron, real property located at 17 Toilsome Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map number 2-3-2 for an appeal is denied. May I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Pam, can you please poll the board?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Mr. Rose,
Yes.
Ms. Doyle.
Yes.
Okay, the last determination of the day in the application of Orin Properties LLC, 40 Further Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map number 9-6-10.3 to legalize AC condenser units and a barbecue grill is approved. May I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, Pam, can you please poll the board?
Mr. McGurk,
Yes.
Mr. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Mr. Rose,
Yes.
Ms. Doyle.
Yes.
All right, now we're going to move on to our continued hearings. And Dawn, I think it's 10 House on the Pond, Inc., 10 Lockwood Lane.
And let me tell you who's sitting on the application.
That's
So
great.
we have Mr. McGurk, Mr. McMullen, Mr. O'Connell, Mr. Rose, Ms. Doyle. Is that right? Yeah.
Dawn and Dave, morning.
Yes.
Yes, good morning. Dave Harvey, D&D Harvey Architects, and Dawn Harvey, 21 Cove Road, Sag Harbor.
Let me swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
We do.
Go ahead, guys.
Okay, so Dawn's going to pull up a drawing that is easiest to discuss. So we listened to the board's concerns from last month and went back to the drawing board. And what you can see from the drawing on the screen, does everybody have that? We have reduced the size of the house, so it no longer needs a square footage GFA variance. You can see that in the bubble here. So we're allowed 5,381 square feet, and we're down to 5,377.64. So we no longer need the GFA variance. In doing that, it's also pulled the house back that you can see on the site plan from the front yard setback. It pulled the garage back quite a bit. So now the binding corner is the porch to the far right. So the front yard relief needs to be 35.5 feet instead of the prescribed front yard setback. So we've improved that. The third big issue is the height. So Dawn, can you go to the, keep going, elevations. Okay, so we've taken 3 feet off the height of the entire building. So between the height decrease and the volume decrease, you can see from the dotted lines, we've substantially reduced the massing of the house. And we now are asking for a 35 feet, 4-inch to the peak, which
From the existing.
which as you know, it's supposed to be 34 feet. But what we're asking you to consider is that with the FEMA restrictions and the lifting of the house and the 2 feet of freeboard that, the state kind of mandates from the FEMA zone, we are now asking for a 1 foot 4-inch relief. And you can see that only occurs along the ridge of the main house. So it represents, I think, less than 8% of the second floor area that's beyond the height limit. So it's just the very peak.
And we're putting in the
Mm-hmm. Then if you take into account that the finish grade will actually be elevation 10 and not the existing 7, that's due to the septic system and the minimum clearances we need to cover those in the front yard.
and then the 30 feet. We also put in, we added the trustees got a chance to look at the
Oh, yes.
property.
Okay.
And now the setback is going to be 30 feet and there is a,
The planting buffer
the planting
plan,
plan
next one. There we go.
here.
Okay.
So I think originally they had mentioned 10 feet. We've upped that to 30 feet, and we've proposed a re-veg plan for that.
And Susan Brierly, I think, is around if you have any specific questions on
About
the
that.
landscape plan there.
So
Go ahead. Go ahead, Phil.
I just had a quick question. So you've incorporated all of the trustees' requests
Correct.
into what you're asking for at this point.
Yes.
Does that include the no irrigation installed within 125 feet of the wetlands?
I think maybe Susan she can answer that. I don't know if that was one
But
of
yes,
the
we agree to
requests.
that for sure.
Yes, I had a conversation with Jim Grimes about
Susan?
what the trustees, you want me to swear me in?
Yes, please. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Susan Brierly from Dewey's Planning, 2 Van Scoys Path, East Hampton.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So after our last meeting, which I observed, I went and spoke with Jim Grimes, who brought this to the trustee meeting the following Monday. And basically all they want is this 30-foot buffer. And, I spoke with Bill Hayjack as well. So we're going to work with him on, refining the planting list, maintaining the 30-foot buffer. And I do believe there will be no permanent irrigation. We may need temporary, but we'll work out those details with the trustees and Bill.
And Susan, Kelly, you'll work that out with Susan because you had some of the plants that were in this buffer were not native plants.
No, they're native. They're just not appropriate in their location to the water. We need to shift some things around and introduce a different species upland, I believe, is the issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with the applicant's representatives to refine the actual plant list, but following the same palette of grasses and shrubs on the periphery.
Okay.
I'd just like to say thank you to D&D Harvey for kind of listening to the board and making adjustments. That's I think you guys did a nice job, and I don't have a problem with the application now.
Thank you.
Joe, any comment?
Picking up on the comments. So I agree with Jim McMullen's comment that I think the adjustments that have been made are important, and there's a compelling case on the grounds of the FEMA requirements in order to do the marginal incremental height variance. On the landscaping front, just I want to underscore the point Phil was making that the trustees made about the no permanent irrigation on that within the 125-foot area, and to make just to urge that be a condition of the approval. And also just this is a question for the landscape, the nature of because there's also a no fertilizer requirement pursuant to the code requirements. What's the nature of the lawn planting? I've in the last month I've come up a little bit up the learning curve in terms of which kinds of lawn grass do not require the degree of fertilization and irrigation that sometimes contribute to the problems. I'm just wondering, do you at this point have an understanding of what the program for the upland, the non-30-foot buffer, 125-foot non-permanently irrigated lawn treatment will be?
We haven't taken it to that step, but we will work with landscape in order to make sure we comply.
Great. I have just a quick question. So it's an existing lawn now, and I understand, no irrigation. Do we actually have to replace the grass? I don't mind if we do, but is that the gist of it?
So where we're removing the house,
oh yeah,
and the
that's for
septic
sure.
system, that's we're going to have to pay attention to that carefully so that something will grow there, because sometimes the soil isn't suitable once a house and a septic system have been there and leaching for a while, which is why we'll bring in professional landscapers to assess the soil and what is appropriate to plant in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just have a procedural question. So we keep the hearing open till we see the final plan next month. John?
I'm just curious, Philip, what's the final plan?
Just procedurally, are we keeping the hearing open do we keep the hearing open until next month, or we can close the hearing now?
I think we can close the hearing now. I think we've got, Billy will work with them. I mean, we've done this before.
Yeah, you could make you could write the decision if the board's inclined to approve it. The decision could be a condition that they amend their buffer plan, to the satisfactory of the village planner. We've We've done that before.
Several
If
times.
we incorporate the recommendations of the trustees and the other items in, we should be able to close the hearing, I would imagine, right?
I think so, but
Okay,
happy with
Okay
whatever.
with that.
All right, so can I have a motion to close the hearing?
So
make
moved.
a motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Pam, we have the continued hearing for 17 Turbo Lane. Can you please
Yeah.
indicate who's sitting on this?
Sure. Mr. McMullen, Mr. O'Connell, Mr. Rose, Ms. Doyle, and Mr. Carmely. But I don't think Shahab is here, so.
Okay. So is Bruce on?
Yes.
Let me swear you in, Bruce.
Yeah.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Bruce Horowitz, 16 Salt Marsh Path, East Hampton, New York.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Since our last hearing, you have responded back to the board, and actually we have received similar comments for this project as we did the last one. Did you have a chance to look at those, Bruce? What the
I'm sorry.
trustees?
I have not seen anything from the trustees, although Jim, I was talking to Jim Grimes about some other matter, and he asked about the permit for the property.
Right.
But I have not spoken to the trustees about this.
So Pam, you have those requests from the trustees, correct?
Yes, we got them last night.
Yeah. So I think what we should do is give Bruce time to look that over with his client and make sure that everything is acceptable to them, because I think it's very important that we look at these areas where water, like the ponds, are impacted very carefully. And I thank Jimmy Grimes for giving us that kind of letter and procedural recommendations. Does any board member have anything to add?
Yeah, so I just had one question for Bruce with regard to the applicants not desiring to put in any sort of sound attenuating fence. That's their position, and they want to hold to that position, correct?
Well, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Is it now the appropriate time?
Yes.
Yeah. So I went over to look at the property. First of all, my understanding, back to the issue of the vegetation, the trustees, my understanding was that I didn't realize that was still pending. And I'm sure that since we were going to need a trustee permit in order to do that work, that was always the intention. I didn't realize the trustees had any additional issue because we already had a permit with them, but we will certainly look at that and get back to both the trustees and to the village about that. But at the time that we left the last hearing, my understanding was that those issues had been resolved, and the only question that the board was concerned about had to do with a noise factor from the generator in regard to the neighbors. And so I went out to the property, I guess it was a day or so after the hearing, and looked at it, keeping in mind the comments of the board. And as I said in my response, I really, this generator is quite far from any of the neighbors. I really didn't think that it wasn't clear what sort of screening was being asked for and whether or not it was still appropriate. But the owner has no issue at all with the idea of putting in screening if there's a need. Her house is, they're about 10 to 15 feet away from the generator. They've never been bothered by it. The closest neighbor is about 200 plus feet away. So, and there's already vegetation in between. It's not necessarily native vegetation. It's a very weedy open lot, or not open, but a lot. So it's not clear what screening, if any, would be appropriate. She has no objection to it. She's not fighting it, but she's about to put in $10,000+ worth of planting into redoing an area that formerly was lawn. And she's done extensive landscaping around the property and hopes to continue to. She just didn't feel the need to do any there.
It's my feeling that the real neighbor is, I believe, the Nature Conservancy, right? There's a swath of land between the two properties, or the neighbor and this property. I think that now becomes public property, so people can actually be there. So I don't know if there's a path actually through that area that people walk, but I still think it's important that we do some sound attenuation and plantings. And I know that also this would technically trigger another variance to put the stuff up, but I think we can overlook that. I don't know how the board members feel, but in a way to prevent the sound transmission to neighboring properties, I think it's worth it, and kind of overlooking the need for a variance to put a fence with some insulation around the generator.
I think we can incorporate that into our.
Can incorporate that into the approval.
Yeah, as long as all the other board members feel the same way, that's fine. But does anybody else have any?
I would agree with that.
Me as well. Just want to follow up, Mr. Horwath, on the comments that the trustees made. In addition to the restoration and the plant selection and the means and methods of the work to be done, there's a issue regarding irrigation on the part that does remain. Is there any permanent in-ground irrigation now in that lawn within the 125-foot setback?
I would have to check and see. I'll have to look into that. There was definitely no intent to add any irrigation other than temporary, if any needed to be done.
Well, right, but the point is, in the 125-foot setback, it should be to the extent that it's there. It should be removed. And again, same question vis-a-vis the previous application that I believe you heard our discussion on. Obviously, there's without permanent irrigation, it goes to the nature of the grass mix and what's being done, and it would be it's important to have the landscape and within that 125-foot buffer, with the exception of that marginal area for the vegetable garden. I mean, there's a no fertilizer requirement, and B, there's a lack of permanent irrigation requirement. So those,
understood.
Using your expertise, there's a need to incorporate those factors into the horticultural plan.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Can I get back to the comment about the neighbor? Just briefly, the public property neighbor that we're talking about is the Conic Land Trust. There is no public access through that property. So, if you still feel the same way about the need for landscaping, as I said, or screening, we will go ahead and do that. It's not clear, and I don't mean this facetiously at all. It's not clear at all what you're looking for. There's only about 6 to 10 feet of area between the generator and the fence. And if we're not talking about some sort of complete enclosure to the generator, which I don't think you're suggesting, I just don't want to come back here and then be told that what I did didn't anticipate what you were looking for. Can you give me any guidance on that? Or Billy, if Billy knows, and I can work with Billy on it.
I can jump in if there's a, so if there's in a case where there's a mitigation and if there were neighbors within close proximity, residential dwellings or the like, then this would be the likelihood would be that we would seriously, I think, contemplate removing the generator. In this case, because of the factors that you said, in order to permit it to remain there going forward, and to not have a precedent of just allowing, okay, there's a house 100 feet away as opposed to 25 feet or 50 feet away, you have to screen it and protect it. So coming up with a suitable plan and working it out with Billy and submitting to the application, I think would be satisfactory. But it does have to be done.
Okay.
At least in
agree.
my opinion.
So, so we will leave this open till next meeting and just pick up from where we left off.
Great, thanks.
Great. Thank you. So back to John.
Okay, so we're going to move into the new hearings for the meeting today. And we have first on the agenda, 12 West Dune Lane LLC, 12 West Dune Lane. Ms. Bennett?
Application of 12 West Dune Lane LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 3019422 for an area variance from Chapter 278 zoning to construct additions to a pre-existing non-conforming residence. A gross floor area variance is requested from Section 278-3813 to construct 83 square feet of additions and permit a residence to contain 5,968 square feet of gross floor area, where the maximum permitted gross floor area is 5,571 square feet, and any other relief necessary. The existing residence contains 5,885 square feet of gross floor area. The subject property is 45,711 square feet in area and is located at 12 West Dune Lane in Residence District R160. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Can I please just jump in and say that I am recusing myself from this application?
Okay, and then Andy will sit in.
Thank you.
Okay, and good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Andy Goldstein, you're gonna, good morning.
Morning, Andrew Golson for the applicant. I have with me Steve Sanabria, one of the architects on the project. And Pam, could you just swear Steve in, and that way he would be able to talk without any...
Sure. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Steven Sanabria, 18 Sandalwood Court, Hampton Bays, New York, 11946.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Stephen, or Andy.
Initially, I'm sorry. Initially, I'd like to apologize to the board. We did submit an amendment to the application just the other day because we had only learned that day that the building permit for the property had been amended to remove a portion of the building that is actually not part of this application, but which had the effect of significantly reducing the amount of relief that we are requesting, going down from 83 square feet to 14 square feet for these, what are effectively two architectural details on the property, which do not add living space per se. The first is, and I'd like to hand over to Steve to let him explain what it is that's being requested.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is, again, Steven Snyder from Fleetwood McMullen Architects. The first variance that we're looking for is what I'm calling the front entry variance, which would be on the east side of the property, and it's over the front entrance. The gambrel that currently exists, the main gambrel that exists on that side, what we're looking to do is just expand that gambrel in exactly the same shape, proportion, pitches and everything else with the same materials, shingles on the outside and the white trim, and pushing it out to the end. To the end of the roof line. Currently, it sits back. We'd like to push it forward. And like Mr. Goldstein said, it doesn't add any GFA technically. What it does do is it gives us height inside the right there. So it gives us the ability to kind of go into that door and have plenty of headroom to walk into that currently master walk-in closet. So that space is gained. And in doing that, what happens also as a byproduct of that is we have to also add some area that is by the stair, and it's basically floor area, but it is not accessible unless you would have to climb into that space. So the building department kind of said that is really adding that GFA. And the other area, the other variance that we're looking for is the north part of the building, and that's a bay window. And the bay window would just house, or basically be for the purposes of having a bathtub in that master bathroom. There is another bay window on the other side, the south side. So we were trying to kind of copy or keep in kind the details of the outside. So that bay window would just house the tub. The tub is a built-in tub and has a tub deck, which is about 20 to 24 inches off the floor. So you couldn't really walk into that space. You obviously step into the tub and access the tub and use the tub. But in doing so and having that tub deck, then we're not able to kind of walk into that area. That does add square footage as far as the building department is concerned. So for those reasons, we are looking for a variance.
And as I said, they're removing an attached shed from the building, which also reduces the pre-existing encroachment into the side yard setback. And so there's a reduction in the actual net GFA that's being requested. We are the plans that would be built to are not actually changed. We have a survey. We would provide a survey that shows the proposed removal of the shed, which would be the survey of record for a determination should you choose to grant one. Procedurally, I'd just like to leave the written record open so we could submit that so that it wouldn't hold up any determination in my issue.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Do we have any callers?
There are no callers on the line.
Do we have? I mean, does any board member have any issues with this? Okay, so we'll leave the written record open until the next meeting, and then we can have a determination. You're going to submit a new survey. Is that what you're saying, Andy?
Yes, we'll show a survey showing that shed on the south side of the property being removed.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay. So Pam, we'll move on to the second hearing of the day.
Sure. Application of Acacia Green LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 81045 for an area variance from Chapter 278 zoning to construct a tennis court. A 20-foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A5C to construct a tennis court 20 feet from the side yard lot line where the required setback is 40 feet and any other relief necessary. The subject property is 69,832 square feet in area and is located at 8 Marina Lane in Residence District R80. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Hey, good morning. So I think I may be a guilty party as submitting information late, and
yes,
it brought me back to high school. It brought me back to high school and bringing my homework in late. I definitely felt guilty, and I do apologize.
Don't get Pam mad. That's all I'm saying.
I'm well aware of how that works. So yeah, no, I do apologize. As the board knows, I'm not sure if I've done that anytime recently for sure. And I apologize for doing it this time. It won't happen again. The client bought this, the client owns the house next door and bought this property about 2 years ago with the intent of mostly siting a tennis court on it. And maybe a guest house or tennis pavilion. There is an existing house on it, which at some point that house will more than likely be torn down. But there really is. I mean, we haven't even decided, partly because we're waiting to see whether the board would grant this variance or not. But the team, which included landscape details and Bates Massey architecture, hasn't even really started the process of figuring out where the guest house would be located on the property. As the board can see, it's a somewhat unusual shaped lot, and really they're still in the early planning stages. So what they did is we all had a meeting, and with the primary intent being to add a tennis court to this property, we had a meeting to decide where it would best be suited. That meeting included the common desire, which is to have a tennis court on a north-south axis. It also had the applicant wanted pretty easy access to it from their house, which will be where people will live on these two combined properties. The common boundary line that you see on the survey is really there for legal purposes only. The property is intended to be used as one property. You wouldn't merge them because of the loss of value on merger, but for all intents and purposes, they intend to use both properties as one. So during our meetings, with that in mind, there was a lot of as you can imagine, sliding the tennis court around the property to see where it best fit. The obvious location is near where it is. However, to meet setbacks would require the tearing down of the existing house on the property. So that was not ideal, at least because there's no intention to tear the house down probably within the next 2 years at least, maybe longer. And also the problem was, if you look at the property, it's just so oddly shaped that putting it where the blue outline is, which is the legal spot, sort of slides the tennis court into the middle of the property. So future planning for the property sort of centers around a tennis court. It sort of becomes a dominant feature on the property. With that in mind, we started looking at the setbacks, and as the board is aware, you have accessory setbacks are 20 feet, but tennis courts are required to meet double setbacks. The reason for that being that tennis courts have an associated noise component, and the idea is that you double the setbacks to protect neighbors from the noise. So knowing that the common boundary line was ourselves, we thought we would ask the board for a variance because with a very clear benefit, there was no known detriment to locating the tennis court at the normal accessory setback, because the only person who would suffer from any noise would be the actual applicant. Also, if you look at an aerial photograph of these properties, there is some slight benefit to sliding it closer to our client's property, and that it slides it further away from any residential neighbors. We did look at precedent. I did submit 2 recent approvals from the board. There was one at 127 Main Street. There was one at 94 Appoquog. Both of those were approvals for very similar variances. Somewhat surprisingly, one of them was over the neighbor's objections, but the other one had a letter of support from the neighbor. So that further led us to believe that if we ask for this variance, it may be viewed favorably. The last thing that has come up is, and it's come up in the course of my career representing people before boards, is that people say, well, it's all well and good that you're not going to hurt yourself now, but who's to say you won't sell your house in the future? So, and I think that has some validity. I mean, the answer to that is usually that anybody who buys one of these properties in the future will be well aware of what's going on in the properties. It would buy eyes wide open, which may lower the value or increase the value of the property as it may be. But to try to eliminate any source of friction, the client was further willing to covenant that in the event the property is sold in the future as not one, but as individual properties, that the tennis court would either be removed or they would come back to the zoning board at that time and ask for further relief. So I believe I have outlined both in my letters and today that there's a pretty clearly defined benefit from granting the variance without any known detriment. Although we haven't heard if there's any neighbors or from the board with regard to whether you can see any detriment. As the board knows, and I submitted a couple cases from the appellate division on this, the primary purpose of the zoning board is to do no harm, both to the environment, to the community, and to the neighbors. And to do no harm, you're asked to do a balancing test. And the balancing test is benefit versus detriment. And when there is no detriment, typically a board would approve a variance. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Do we have any callers on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay. Board members?
I just have one question. How large, do we know how large the existing cottage is on that lot 14?
So based off the listing, which is still available online, it's 3,900 square feet, but I don't want to represent that as being accurate. Only listing, real estate listing.
No, that's close enough. My thing is that if we were to grant this variance, and now the client is going to take down the existing structure and build a new one. They can build something up to 8,400 square feet or so. I just find granting a variance so you can avoid taking down the house now, which you're just going to take down later, is a little odd. I don't know what the other board members feel about that, but we're granting a variance for something that can then be conforming later on if the house is going to come down. And I know it's not designed or planned for yet, but just something to think about for the board members.
I just picking up on Jim's comment, I have no problem with the, in light of this conditions of the joint ownership of the neighboring property, with the variance for the tennis court, to the extent that, but there's obviously are plans that will be formulated for the redevelopment of the rest of the property. The swimming pool's being removed, the cottage, or I'm not sure it's a cottage, the house is going to come down. I don't know if maybe more than 2 years from now, but it certainly looks from doing a site visit that it's on its way. It's on its way to being torn down. I just want to underscore, and to avoid any kind of sort of serial treatment of issues, would strongly encourage the design of whatever goes there to be within the context of an as of right. Don't seek a variant. You can do whatever you want, but I think the board would be very skeptical of a variance that came back seeking, well, we have to put this here and that there, and we need relief because we have this tennis court that gets in the way. So it should be.
We would be willing to covenant that for as long as the tennis court's there, no further relief will be requested. There's a very clear intention not to ask for that.
I mean, I have concerns. It's a substantial variance of 50%, self-created, and it seems, an alternative exists. You could put it somewhere else on the property. You could do a short court. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Philip. Carrie, any comments?
No, I sort of agree with what they've said. It seems like it's going to open the door for a lot more variances, but I mean, if it's they're going to assure us that that's not going to happen. Perhaps that's something to look at. I don't know why there's not just a master plan of what's going to be done so that we know what we're going to see there already.
I can answer that question quickly. Just that I can tell you what the master plan includes, which is a tennis pavilion and a guest cottage. But laying it out is tricky because it's such an unusual building envelope, and it partly depends. So I can tell you what's coming, but I can't tell you exactly where it's going to go, only because it partly depends on whether the variance is granted or not.
I'll see.
Lisa, can you chime in here? I mean, these they can't put conditions on this, right? Usually, where they're going to take them out. I don't know. I'm just asking Jonathan. So,
I think you can't. Sometimes there's a question about whether you can force conditions on an applicant. I think the applicant can volunteer.
They can agree to conditions. I mean, that's a suggestion you can make, and it can be something that you require as part of the approval. And if they agree to it, they agree to it.
I think the issue is there has to usually be a nexus between what you're asking for and the request. But in this case, we're not even asking for there to be a nexus. I can completely understand why you would say, well, what's coming next? I mean, I've seen that enough. So we want to eliminate that fear by volunteering that there is no further requests coming. We'll put that as a covenant. We'll work within the building envelopes.
Anybody else have any more comments?
I would just add the building envelopes and the coverage limitations.
Yeah, I should say, as I was saying that, I was thinking that it sounded like
it's an undersized lot.
We'll work within the village code.
Okay, yeah, it's a 70,000 square foot lot in a 80 R80 zone, and the tennis court is going to chew up quite a bit of coverage and leave, a nominal amount of coverage left over for a residence and a swimming pool and all the other amenities that typically come along with it. So
yeah, it actually was not something I thought of, but it's I don't remember who said it first, but it's a very valid concern, and hopefully we can address that by adding that covenant voluntarily. It will work within the village code and the rest of the property, or remove the tennis court, in which case we have to come back to you for relief, which I don't think we're removing the tennis court after we build it.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Philip, we have a motion to close the hearing.
Make a
Make
motion.
a motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Jonathan.
All right, thank you.
John,
I think I'm sticking around.
may I ask a question, John?
Who's that?
Andy Goldstein. There was a determination included in the agenda, 50 Highway Behind the Pond, that was omitted from the determinations that were voted on.
Pam,
Oh, no, it wasn't.
You voted on it.
we voted on it.
Really?
You missed it, Andy.
Andy, it got denied. Sorry
Well,
about
no
that.
wonder I have
Have a
selective
nice
hearing.
day.
Oh, so this was approved, in other
You're
words.
all good, Andy.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Have a nice day. And I'm Jimmy. I'm going to recuse myself from this application, and Jim McMullen's going to take over from here, and I believe Jonathan's up again. So thank you all.
And then Andy Barris will sit in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Want to read the posting?
Yep. Application of Curcus 27 East LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-76143 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to reconstruct a pre-existing non-conforming residence and to construct a patio, a porch, and a window well. A variance is required from sections 278-2B1 and 278-7C2D to reconstruct a single-family residence on a parcel of land containing an office use and two single-family residences where one single-family residence is the maximum permitted by zoning. Variances of 16.1 feet, 20 feet, 16 feet, and 5 feet are required from sections 278.3E1 and 278.3A4 to permit the reconstruction of a single-family residence located 17.9 feet from a side yard lot line and to construct a window well, patio, and porch located 14 feet, 18 feet, and 29 feet from the side yard lot line where the required transitional yard setbacks are 34 feet. A 452 square foot coverage variance is requested from section 278.3A9 to permit 23,876 square feet of coverage where 23,424 square feet is legally pre-existing. Permitted coverage is 12,890 square feet. The subject property is 64,453 square feet in lot area and is located at 103 Montauk Highway with frontage along Cove Hollow Road and is in Residence District R80. This project requires approval by the Village Design Review Board and is classified as a type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Thank you, Pam. So Jonathan, you want to walk us through?
Yeah, a quick walkthrough. So everybody on the board I know is familiar with the history of this property. It was an eyesore and a huge problem in the village prior to Michael Derrick buying it and converting the restaurant, which was always a restaurant, to his offices. Hopefully everybody had a chance to go out there and for the purposes of reviewing. I mean, the property is absolutely gorgeous now. Most of the effort was put into landscaping and switching the restaurant over to his current offices. He is now focused on the two accessory structures, which are single family houses. They're in at least the one that's before the board today is in really, really rough shape. It's closing in on not being habitable. No attention has been paid to it for probably 50 years. The restaurants used it as a 4-bedroom house for staff, probably at least 4 bedrooms. You can imagine there are probably a lot more people live in the structure. The goal is simply to rebuild it on the existing footprint. It will not look exactly the same. Most of the reason for that is aesthetic. There was a house there, and then probably in the early 80s, there was a shed added to the back of the house. So if you look at the existing plans for the application, you'll see what's typically referred to as like a bastardization of the original home. It's all legal, but it's just not an architecturally pretty house. The plan is to rebuild it. So the plan is to rebuild it with a different roof line. However, it's not going to be while you look at it and you say it's going to be a two-bedroom house, a 2-story house. It's really not. It's a story and a half. Part of that reason is if you look, what is currently a 4-bedroom house will be rebuilt as a 1-bedroom house. And that 1 bedroom's in a loft. So you keep the footprint, but you're only having a loft or a bedroom upstairs that will overlook the downstairs. So you're going to have a double when you walk in. It's going to be a very small structure. So to add to the livability of the inside of the house, it's going to have a double height, which will make it feel bigger inside. And the bed. So then you'll have your bathroom, your kitchen, and your living room, and then you'll have a small bedroom with a bathroom in the loft upstairs. I can remember when we came in to convert the restaurant to the office, that the neighbor spent a long time at the hearings talking about how badly the property was being treated and all her fears about how it would be treated in the future. That neighbor, I can almost guarantee you, will not. And that is the neighbor who's closest to this house. That neighbor, I can almost guarantee you, will not be on the phone today because they could not be more happy with the transition that went on from living for decades next to a restaurant to what they live to next now, which is almost like an arboretum if you go to the property. So other than the need to rebuild it, other than the fact that it triggers, there's two things triggering our need to be here today. One is that because there are two cottages on the property, any change to them triggers the need to come to the zoning board. And the second is he's proposing, if you go there now, there's sort of a gravel area behind the house, and we're proposing to make that a patio. So we would need a coverage variance. And if this was a residential property, we actually wouldn't need a coverage variance, but we do because for commercial properties, parking is counted as coverage, or driveways are counted as coverage also. So it's a residential variance we're seeking, but we're applying the commercial coverage variance standards. But again, the reason for that is to convert like a stone area to a patio area behind the house. Hopefully I laid that out for you. If there's any questions for the board.
So all we're talking about is a coverage issue?
Well, there is a variance triggered simply by the fact that we want to rebuild. No, I should be more clear. So there's a variance triggered simply by the fact that we want to rebuild a cottage on a property where there's two of them. There's the variance for the coverage, and then there's a couple of very minor. There's a couple little bump out porches and an entryway to the basement that are additions. So the house itself doesn't require any. Billy will correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't require any variances, but I believe some of the little bump outs do.
Thank you.
And then this isn't expanding the square footage of this house, correct?
It's not. You would think it would. Yeah. Well, it may to the extent that yes, it probably does because we're going to double count the You have to double count the
anything over 15 feet, right?
Yeah. So I suspect that it might increase it slightly, but there's not any more floor area inside the house. We're actually reducing the bedrooms from 4 to 1.
Okay. Are there any callers on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Thank you, Jody.
No
any
problem.
other board member want to?
Does this trigger new septic? Do you know? Anybody know?
I don't know the answer to the question.
Yes, I can opine. Billy Hajak for the village. Good morning. Yes, it would. A reconstruction of a residential structure requires installation of an innovative alternative septic system. So
actually,
yes.
now that Billy mentions, I think that was an early discussion and that has been applied for. Now that I'm thinking about it.
And is that just for that structure, or does that cover? Do all the structures share the same septic? Obviously, the septic flow is nothing like it was before when it was a restaurant.
I think the septic system for the main, what was for the former restaurant, has been upgraded already as part of that redevelopment project. I don't know if the two cottages share a single system. Based on the location of the concrete covers near the structure, I would guess not, but it's possible that they do.
Okay, just a question. Thank you.
Joe, do you have any comments?
Nope.
Anyone else?
No.
Harry? No. Andy? You're on mute.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No, I don't have anything to add at this time or comment on.
So
Okay.
I make a motion to close the hearing.
So, second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think we've lost our leader. So I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Make a
So
motion.
moved. Oh,
Second.
Before we close, just want to underscore that for Pam, if you're still there.
I'm
Pam?
here. I'm
Okay.
here.
Just want to underscore, and for Lisa, that the determinations on the pond front properties we acted on before incorporate the trustees' issues, and especially regard to irrigation and the like. Just want to make sure that's in there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So can I have a second to close the hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Everyone have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you
Good
all.
night.